So welcome. Today we will look at the histological organization of the tunics of the eyeball. So this is the eyeball. This is the eyeball here, as you can see it. So quick overview. This is the aqueous chamber. This is the vitreous chamber. This is the lens. This is the iris here and here. In between here is the opening, the pupil. This is the cornea here. Okay, this is the retina. We look into them shortly. So the tunics of the eyeball. The eyeball is three layered. It has three layers or three tunics. So an outer fibrous coat, which is made up of sclera and cornea. Then we have a mediovascular coat, which is made up of the choroid, ciliary body, and the iris, and the inner nervous coat, which is made up of the retina. So the sclera in the outer fibrous coat, the sclera, today we are looking at the wall of the eye. Maybe I can show you the wall. Yeah. You can see this is the retina from somewhere there up to there. Then this pigmented one is the choroid. Then the outer one is this up to here. This is the sclera. So the sclera usually makes up the, can go here. So the outer fibrous coat is also known as the fibrous tunic. It is the outer layer of the optic wall composed of an opaque sclera and a transparent cornea. Sclera is opaque, heavily vascularized connective tissue that covers the posterior 5/6. So, okay. So the sclera makes up the posterior 5/6 and the cornea makes up the anterior 1/6. So the sclera it consists of mainly collagen type 1, and yeah, we can have a higher magnification of the sclera to see that. So here it is from here. This is the sclera, collagen type 1. I think it also has some fibroblast cells. Let's see if we can see one or two. Yes, these cells with the flat nucleus. These are the fibroblasts. Okay. So let's look at the cornea. So the cornea is the anterior 1/6 of the outer fibrous tunic. Cornea has 5 layers. Okay. Corneal epithelium, which is stratified squamous, non-keratinized epithelium. Okay. So maybe a higher magnification will help you to see that it is a stratified squamous, non-keratinized. So you can see the cells here at the apical surface. They are flattened. So those are squamous cells, and you cannot see there is no keratin, so it is non-keratinized. Then just the basement membrane of that epithelium is known as the Bowman's membrane. A Bowman's membrane, it is very hard to see. You can see how thin it is, 7 to 12 micrometers. So that is very difficult to see under right microscopy. Maybe electron microscopy might help. Then we have the stroma. So this is the stroma from the Bowman's membrane up to the Descement's membrane. All of this is the stroma. Okay, it is usually avascular made up of collagen, and you can also see it has some fibroblasts, those cells with flat nuclei. It is made up of about 200 to 250 lamella of fine collagen fibers. They are usually arranged parallel to each other, and is usually responsible for that parallel arrangement of the lamella is responsible for the cornea transparency. So if there is any disease which is affecting the arrangement of the lamella of the collagen, it might lead to opacity of the cornea. So then here you can see the other layer is the descendants membrane. Here it is. This one is a bit clearer than the Bowman's here. You can see it there. Then this other is the corneal endothelium. Corneal endothelium is somewhat simple squamous epithelium. Okay. Then let's look at the other tunic. It's known as the uveal tunic or the Mediovascular Tunic. It is composed of the choroid, ciliary body, and the iris. So the choroid makes up the posterior 2/3 of the eye. So choroid, let's look at the choroid. Here is the choroid, a very good image. Here is the choroid. Okay, it is one highly vascular. You can see these are blood vessels here. These are capillaries. Another one is pigmented. You can see the pigment here. These are melanocytes. Okay. Then it is composed of two layers. We have a choriocapillary layer, or what they are calling the vascular layer here. It is the choriocapillary layer and the Bruch membrane. Okay. So this is the choriocapillary layer. From here up to somewhere there. Then you can see this membrane here. That is the Bruch membrane. Okay, that is the Bruch membrane. So remember so I've said it has two layers: choriocapillary layer, or what they are calling the vascular layer, and the Bruch membrane. Then between the sclera and the chorion, we have a space here, or a layer, the suprachoroid. The suprachoroid lamina. The suprachoroid lamina is made up of a loose network of connective tissue, and is usually traversed by long posterior ciliary vessels, the long posterior ciliary vessels and nerves. So that is that for the choroid. Then let's look at the ciliary body. So the ciliary body here it is. Yes, so you can see these are the ciliary processes. This is the ciliary body itself. Hope you can see this is a sclera here. So it is a thickening of the choroid at the junction between the posterior 2/3 and the anterior 1/3 of the eye. Ciliary muscle. So ciliary muscle, the ciliary muscle is the one which usually it is attached to the sclera and the ciliary body and controls the shape of the lens. So it is the one, it is attached to the zonular fibers, okay, the suspensory ligaments. So when it remember during the accommodation of the eye, we should read about how the ciliary muscle is involved in the accommodation of the eye. So the ciliary body, it has a fibrovascular layer and a pigmented layer. And remember, it is continuous with the choroid posteriorly, okay? And it lies posterior to the limbus. The limbus is the corneal junction. So it has ciliary processes. Let me show you the ciliary. Now let's look at the ciliary processes. These are the ciliary processes. These ones, these projections. So there are 60 to 90 folds on the inner aspect. They are arranged radially between the ciliary ring and the iris. So they are between the ciliary ring and the iris. So grooves, these grooves, I hope you can see these grooves. The grooves between the ciliary processes is the attachment of the zonular fibers. Okay. So about the ciliary muscle, remember it has an outer radial fibers. There are outer radial fibers and inner circular fibers. Those might be hard to show you here, but these outer ones are usually radial and the inner ones are usually circular. Okay, and they are involved in the as I had said, in the accommodation of the eye. Let's look at the, maybe to show you, maybe let's see there. The surface is usually covered by an outer pigmented and an inner non-pigmented simple columnar epithelium. Maybe this is the simple columnar epithelium here. I think this is the final, no? I see this epithelium here. This epithelium is a simple columnar epithelium. So let's look at the zonular fibers. The zonular fibers, I've said they attach. These are the zonular fibers. Although they are discontinuous here, they are usually attached to the into the folds, into the gaps between the ciliary processes, and they insert into the lens. They help in the accommodation of the eye. Okay, then let's look at the final part of the uveal tunic, which is the iris. Maybe the iris I have to show you another time. But about the iris, it is pigmented and it has it is pigmented. It acts as a contracted diaphragm. It usually acts as a contracted diaphragm. Here I have I have an image on the iris. Yeah, this is the iris. This is the iris. It is a contracted diaphragm between the cornea and the lens. Its opening, this opening is the pupil. It is above here. Maybe here, or you can look from here. You can see this opening between the two the iris. Remember, it is circular. This is a mid-sagittal view of the eye. It is usually attached to the periphery, to the middle of the anterior surface of the ciliary body. Then also the iris has two parts. From here to here, this is the fibrovascular stroma. Then we have a pigmented epithelium here. Okay, this pigmented epithelium is the one which usually determine the color of the eye. All eyes are usually blue during birth, but depending on the melanin content, they can change the color to say brown, some black, some green, some remain blue. So also the iris has two muscles, a dilator pupillae and the sphincter pupillae. Okay, the dilator pupillae dilates the pupil and is innervated. It is a smooth muscle, so it is innervated by the sympathetic fibers. The sphincter pupillae, it constricts the pupil and is innervated by the parasympathetic fibers. Okay, so remember the dilator pupillae is radial fibers. The fibers of the dilator pupillae run radially, and those of the sphincter pupillae run in a circular manner. So I think with that, the iris, I've discussed the iris. Then let's go to the retinal tunic or the retina. So the retina, it is the one responsible for photoreception. Okay, so it is the innermost layer. It is usually composed of a pigment epithelium and the neuroretina. So there is a outer pigmented layer and now the neural layer. So there is an outer pigmented layer and a neural layer. So it has 10 layers. The retina has 10 layers. I think you can see them here. An outer pigmented epithelium. Then we have a photoreceptive layer of rods and cones. Then we have the external limiting membrane. Then we have the outer nuclear layer. The outer nuclear layer, let's have a higher magnification for you to see that. Now this is the outer pigmented layer, this one. Then this is the photoreceptive layer of rods and cones, or simply the layer of, it is the layer, this is where we have the inner and outer segments of rods and cones. Then here, not clearly visible, is the external limiting membrane. Then this is the outer nuclear layer. Outer nuclear layer is composed of the nuclei of rods and cones. Yeah. Then here we have the outer plexiform layer. This is the outer plexiform layer. The outer plexiform layer is the synapse between the rods and cones and the bipolar neurons. So this is the inner nuclear layer. It has the cell bodies of the bipolar neurons. Now they usually synapse with the rods and cones in the outer plexiform layer. Then this is the this is the inner nuclear layer. This is the inner plexiform layer. It's a synapse between the ganglion cells and the bipolar neurons. This is the ganglion cell layer. Okay, ganglion cell layer. Then they usually send out their axons to form this layer. This layer is composed of the axons of the ganglion cell, is known as the nerve fiber layer. Then this is the inner limiting membrane. Okay, let me do a rewind. This is the outer pigmented layer. This is the outer pigmented layer. Then here we have the layer, the photoreceptive layer of rods and cones. Then here we have an external limiting membrane. Then we have the outer nuclear layer, cell bodies of rods and cones. Outer plexiform layer, the synapse between the rods and cones with the bipolar neurons. Then we have the inner nuclear layer, cell bodies of the bipolar neurons. Then we have the inner plexiform layer, synapse between the ganglion cells with the bipolar neurons. Then we have the ganglion cell layer. This. Then we have a nerve fiber layer composed of the axons of the ganglion cells. Then we have the inner limiting membrane. Now, these axons of the ganglion cells, they usually exit the eye to form the optic nerve. The axons of the ganglion cells, they usually exit the eye via the optic disc to form the optic nerve. Okay, I hope you have understood the retina. Then we can look at the lens. It is a transparent biconvex disc. It is composed of lens fibers that are remnants of cells filled with crystallines. This is a protein. It is usually surrounded by a capsule. Okay, so let's look at the capsule and you will tell me what kind of epithelium is this. So this is the capsule here. And you can see here an epithelium. Then these are the lens fibers. Okay. So on the anterior surface, it is thick basement membrane produced by the subcapsular cuboidal cells. So in fact, this is the basement membrane. So these are the cuboidal cells, subcapsular. So this is the capsule. So this is beneath subcapsular cuboidal cells. So yeah, maybe I return to the retina for a minute. I emphasize on something. The retina, it has supporting cells and association cells. We have the amacrine and horizontal cells are the association cells. Then the supporting cells, the supporting cell is the molar cell. Molar cell, it usually extend from the inner limiting membrane to the outer, to the external limiting membrane, the molar cell. Okay. So remember the retina does not extend anteriorly. It has the boundary. Its anterior boundary is usually serrated, and that is why it is known as the ora serrata. The ora serrata. Here you can see this is the boundary of this is the anterior margin of the retina, ora serrata. Okay. So maybe what else should you know is the production of the aqueous humor, its flow. So maybe we can look at that if time allows. So let's look at the, so yeah, if time allows. So you should know that aqueous humor is usually produced by these ciliary processes. The ciliary processes produce aqueous humor. This is the aqueous chamber, but the posterior chamber of aqueous chamber. So then it flows. Let me have a whole slide. So it is produced somewhere here. This is where we have the ciliary processes. Then it flows like this. This is the posterior chamber. Posterior chamber lies behind the iris, but in front of the lens. So this, then it enters the anterior chamber of the aqueous chamber via the pupil. Okay, the aqueous humor. Then it goes to the Iridoconio Junction here, the Iridoconio angle or junction, the Iridoconio angle, where it drains into the canal of Shem, the Shem's canal, or what others call the sinus venosus sclerae. Sinus venosus sclerae, here it is, canal of Shem or the sinus venosus sclerae. Then after draining there, it drains into the anterior ciliary veins. That is how it returns back to the blood. That is how it is usually replenished. So it is produced in the ciliary processes. That is in the posterior chamber. Then it enters the anterior chamber by passing through the pupil. Then it goes at the iridoconio angle, where it drains into the canal of Shem. Then from the canal of Shem, it is drained into the anterior ciliary veins. So with that, I would like to say thank you. Thank you for your time, and subscribe for more. Thank you.